let's go above the parent's head. And we talked about a few months ago, about an agreement called the seal. And the seal was what ended the war that happened 250,000 years ago. And the seal basically said the owners of Earth are Enki, and all us inhabitants, by the way. Enki, Marduk, Artemis, aka the Red Queen, and then we have Lucifer, and then we have Anti-Source. So after the end of the war, these were your owners of planet Earth. Now, as owners of planet Earth, they were the beneficial owners of any trust on Earth, including the Lucis Trust, which some of these people have heard about. You might have seen it on the internet. They were the beneficial owners of all your essence, energy, consciousness, matter, frequency, you name it. They owned everything on Earth. All rare earth minerals, everything was in their name. And then anything that would come from us, the little human batteries, they also owned. Yeah. So they would collect all your energy, or your energy would go in to feed the Omega system, what was necessary to keep it running. Hence what the rest of you people know as allocation numbers. So you guys going to the deep state, meaning you guys, going to the families, trying to get some kind of a allocation of energy to go to Omega, hence to you, so then you could flip it into a debt instrument known as money, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and get quote unquote an appropriation or an allocation, which you could then do willy-nilly with whatever you wanted. Wrong again, because the only reason why these people up here would have given an allocation down to here and then eventually down to here was because you have a job to do. Meaning, this will be the year we're going to have World War III. Woo! And you guys are going to do your job. But if you thought that you were going to initiate all of these programs without any kind of an order or a direction from these people, ever, you have lost your ever-loving mind. Now, let's talk about remnants. So we know now who the owners were of planet Earth and all people underneath the seal. And everybody had a different job to do. Marduk was the controller of the current, meaning he would control which direction. And he was the force, he was the wind, if you're talking about an element, that would push the energy down to the beneficial owners. They would push the energy into Omega. They would then give appropriations, is what it was actually called. That was the term. All while at the same time giving you people, even the people at the highest levels of the deep state, all you ever got was a credit. And in order to get that credit, you would have to put something in to get it. If you were in the banking system, you would need to indebt people. You would need to issue thousands of car loans, thousands of mortgages. You would need to issue more credit to people. The reason why everybody knew the name Marduk, I mean, even on the banking level and stuff, they knew that there was something up there that actually gave the orders and what days of the year that allocations would come and all of those kinds of things. But to an extent, it was because they were doing their job and indebting people, or killing people, or altering people's karma in some way, shape, or form, making people do horrible things, whether it's through mind control or, people committing quote unquote suicide by eating bad food or whatever it is, even though they're the ones putting the stuff in the food. So the control mechanism went real deep. Now, after Marduk, Enki, and Enlil were gone, to some degree, their consciousness lived on in the Omega system, the dark system. So for a time, the Omega system was still trying to act as if it still had a leader, based on the fact that it was programmed to act like them in their absence. The same thing happened with the Red Queen. And today we're going to highlight her. So her real name was Artemis. Mm-hmm. And to define who she was, because this is where they're trying to interact right now, is in her world, which she's not here anymore. So, but she was what I call an anti-Pleiadian. She was a lower astral being. She was a red reptilian, for lack of a better term. Really, let's just say, when she was around, her and I never got along. I hated her, she hated me. We ended up at the council many times, and it always ended up with an agreement for us not to kill each other unless we violated this agreement or that kind of thing. Well, eventually she violated way too many times, and now she's gone. We don't miss her. But if you've been around in the alternative media for a long time, you have probably heard of something called the Artemis Accords. Yeah. Now, if you go to the NASA website, you will see a reflection of the Artemis Accords, also known in the alt media as the Jupiter Accords. Why Jupiter? I have no idea. And they basically claim that they made a deal with this lady, which they did do, to have a certain amount of access or continued access or an extension for access into level 5 of the web, also any military and intelligence systems that were in there. And that agreement was from December 2018 during the solstice, and it continued on for 3 years, which coincidentally expired in 2021. However, Artemis's agreement did not expire officially until the 5th of July of this year. Mm. So how old was Artemis's agreement, and why did she have it? Okay, so Artemis had this agreement for 3 billion years. I'm just going to write all about this. 3 billion years. Yeah. And the reason why she had this agreement is because that is the same time we went into the Dark Ages. In Vedic cosmology, they call that the Kali Yuga. So what exactly was Artemis's job? Well, she had many different jobs. She had jobs within computer systems, AI systems, access. She would have also been considered the gatekeeper for anti-source. She would have also been in charge to anyone that needed or wanted access to the causal plane. Web 5. 5. And she would have been in charge of what's called the 0 point. That existed between the Alphaverse and the Omegaverse. So she said, underneath the Dark Ages, who can come and who can go? What becomes matter? What doesn't become matter? That was this red line, so to speak. She would have the ultimate say as to what went where. Now, part of the reason for the war that happened 250,000 years ago is because this 3 billion year old agreement for this being to exist expired. And everybody that was fighting at the time, most of which were not humans, you heard about the wars of Atlantis, trauma of Mu and Lemuria, and all of these types of things that you hear about on the internet. This is the source of it all. That's the war, where they quote unquote say that they lost Atlantis. Atlantis, to repeat myself, is Atlantis was full of anti-Pleiadians, negative beings. The Atlantis was a ship. Which came in through a portal at the direction of the red, because she was not going to lose her agreement to someone else. The war went on for a long time, quite a while, and they finally settled on the seal, which means that Artemis at that time retained her agreement to be the gatekeeper again for another 250,000 years. So the agreement that expired on the new moon on the 5th of July, because everything was done, moon cycles and this and that, even with those people, 2024. Now these people were crazy enough to think, because they had an agreement with her before, that she was going to come and then maybe be a world war. I don't know. And that she was going to then re-up their agreement. When her things. And this is part of the reason why they were so excited, because everything that they had been working on for the last 12 years since I did those assignments in the first place was finally going to come to fruition. This is why everybody on the internet is talking about NESARA GESARA. It's going to happen. It's finally happening. If you are watching Q, then you think that it's going to be the quantum leap has finally happened, blah, blah, blah. No, what happened is I jumped in here and said, oh, I think I'll do that. So under the Guardian, oops, this is now me, okay? But not in a controlling way. I'm there not to control it like she did. She had control. For me, it was not about control, it's about guarding it. In other words, so in case someone gets froggy at some point in time, then we don't have to worry about that. The same thing goes for webs, which is why the deep state went into full on, and all their underlings and operatives and whatever went into full on Harry Carey on Friday. Like, way out of control. Like at this, I'm like, this cannot be just because of the money, like didn't come. They don't get this panicked over money not coming.
Yeah.
They panicked because everything they had stuck in 5 in the web, they lost access to. So this is why.
Okay.
Then you have Enki, Enlil, and Marduk. Enki and Enlil and Marduk had different jobs somewhat, but as it relates to humans and human beings, Enlil would have been more in control of the total density of 8, or possibly even the access from 8 to 9, meaning the soul plane, whether that's the soul plane in computers or that's the soul plane in people or whatever it is. So he was in charge of manipulating that. Marduk was in charge of 7. I'm sorry. Enki would have been 8. Sorry. Enlil would have been more like 9. And he would have said whose soul goes where, that kind of thing, that he had that much control. Enki would have been in charge more of energy management, aka money. And Marduk was the one that directed everything went to go. So in other words, where ether went, where money went, where energy went, where essence went, all that kind of thing. He was the director of the current. But ultimately, they would have met with Artemis, who kept them all honest. So that the same levels of access over in the Omega system as they had in the Alpha system to some degree for a long time, because of the Dark Ages, because of the seal, because of the agreements that were in until I came in 2012 and took it over, because it was my birthright from a completely different avenue. I am not involved with these bloodline people in any way, shape, or form. They're crazy. So their respective broods would get money. So by making the deal with Artemis, which is what they allegedly did, to get an extension after the 3,000-year agreement expired, which put the line of Solomon in control. And that was about the time ago. And I know you're going to say, oh, that's not what the Bible says. That's not the
Bible is written by Marduk in
timeline. That's not what our history says. Well, when has our history ever been correct? Trust me when I tell you, it was over 3,000 years ago that Solomon got the agreement to be the guardian. And by default, the Order of the Black Sun had an agreement to be security. So, line of Cain, whatever you want to call it, that's who you are. You're one of the 15 militaries and you're watching this from Monarch or whoever, that's how you got your job. And then you're downline. So you have intelligence agencies under that, militaries underneath that, operative groups underneath that. You have Black Ops underneath that. You have DARPA. You have, you name it, worldwide. Everything that happened was related to that. Okay. When that agreement expired in December of 2018, which it did, that's another lie. They keep telling everybody they got an extension. They didn't get an extension. It didn't go past 2022, and that's my fault. They didn't get a guardian extension. All they really got was an extension on the Fed and funding and those types of things, and I'm going to show you proof of that here in just a second. So by that time, then they approached Artemis directly and said, hey, we need to do a deal because we want to remain security for this planet. Can we come work for you? And the answer was yes. Sorry, I forgot also the Abraxas are in there too. So that's their bloodline. They're the Abraxas people. Okay. A lot of information to kind of do on the impromptu here, guys, so bear with me. Okay, so let's see. We have these people. Okay, now you also had Lucifer, which these people know well, and you also have anti-source. So we were cursed for quite a long time with these people, but I want to stay focused a little bit on Artemis and other jobs she had. So she didn't always get along with really pretty much anybody because she felt she was superior because she was the gatekeeper to everything. She could actually even gatekeep source, anti-source, you name it. The actual disconnection from people and source, even anti-beings, inorganic beings, were actually disconnected from anti-source directly by Artemis, by covenant and by agreement. And she created what you know as
Akashic Records.
the Akashic Records.
Oh, wow.